Previously on My Uninformed Opinion. Maybe war bad? This time on My Uninformed Opinion. The coalition moral-intern bourgeoisie empire must crumble. Ravachil will rise. It makes more sense once you beat the game. Disco Elysium is a game that sticks with you. It shook my personal beliefs to the core and had me enthralled in a mature, intimately crafted story about love, redemption, and the human experience. You can also punch a kid in the face. This is one of the greatest games ever made. In Disco Elysium, you play as an RPG character. A homeless, drug-riddled, sociopathic, amnesiac, klepto, hell-bent on doing every single mundane chore you can get your grubby little mitts on. Oh, and you can solve a murder while you're at it. If you feel like it. I mean, it's not the biggest deal in the world. It's just a dead body hanging in the middle of the city center. Yeah, you'll get around to it. That body's not going anywhere, but those Insulidian phasmids could be gone any second. Oh, but worse yet, you could be late to pick up the custom dice you had made. You're still gonna get the dice, but you'll be late! What really sets Disco Elysium apart from your typical RPG affair is your character isn't a Commander Shepard or a Geralt of Rivia. He isn't slaying Thraknu, Eater of Worlds with one hand and buying the Tavern Tramp a drink with another. Hell, he struggles enough just trying to turn off a ceiling fan with both hands.
I'm having chest pain!
Your character fucking sucks, to put it lightly. He's a man who's destroyed his life and has been given the rare opportunity to have a fresh start by getting blackout drunk and raising so much hell at a murder investigation that his brain decided that enough was enough and hit the reset button. So the responsibility falls into your hands to pick up the pieces of his miserable life and try to make peace with your past, clean up your act, and maybe, just maybe, do your fucking job like you're supposed to be doing this entire time. Also, important to note, your character is completely insane. During a typical conversation in Disco Elysium, you're going to be talking to yourself just as much as the person you're in the conversation with. Your starting build and the skills you level up throughout the game are going to decide what aspects of your personality appear more in dialogue. Put a lot of points into physical instrument, and your brain is going to act like a roided up meathead after squatting 300 with his broskies. Put your points into logic, and your brain's going to find any excuse to bring up trains and Rick and Morty in conversation. Put points into volition and gain +1 to morale. And also become the self-righteous asshole that everybody hates. While these thoughts can point you in the right direction in a conversation, they can lead you astray just as easily. You could try to put a bit of points into everything and see the situation from every side, but that leads to a mess of thoughts more cluttered than a level 87 gamer den. Character building goes beyond just putting points into different traits. Like most RPGs, a lot of your character's personality comes from the dialogue options you pick. However, unlike most RPGs, instead of deciding whether you address NPCs with polite or rude roughness,
oh my god, Daddy!
What a shame.
you decide the amount of nuts to sprinkle onto your sentence sundae.
Oh, ex-tenderness. It is foolish of you to resurface to the loss. Not after all the damage you suffered to get here. Some of it irreversible. Stay. Sail with me through the abyss of Pelagic Zone.
While the mechanics are a great example of what sets Disco Elysium apart, the true meat of the game, and what keeps me thinking about it long after finishing it, is how the role-playing is done. You've probably noticed that I've been referring to this little guy here as your character instead of using a specific title. That's because Disco Elysium's character building works kinda like an opposite RPG. Let me explain. You know how in most RPGs, your character starts off as a blank slate and is defined later by your actions as the game progresses? Disco Elysium is the opposite. Kind of. Your character starts off as a smoking gun of chaos and destruction that most characters recognize as that asshole who, with the ending of the sentence, decided by how and to what degree your character ruined the perfectly good night they were having. The player's actions aren't to define the character, but to help the character uncover and interpret their past and how they move on knowing it. It's like a union between the two prevailing types of RPGs. The and the where the game and the player decide who the character is instead of just one way or the other. So the game can tell you what your character's name is, and the player can decide if they want to keep it or go by the mysterious but oddly sensual name they came up with at the beginning of the game. While Disco Elysium may not allow you to spec in as Bjorn the Murderlator, it does allow a considerable amount of player choice in how objectives are completed. In nearly every single quest in the game, there's going to be multiple solutions to the same problem with varying degrees of idiocy and dumb luck attached to how you go about it. I won't give away any spoilers for solutions, but this game is filled to the brim with different options to solve problems and a skill system that complements it, which really adds to the replay value. Also, I can't believe that I've gone this long in the video without mentioning the absolutely phenomenal writing in this game. Like, if you got Mark Twain, Dostoevsky, and Za-Um in a room and forced them to write a novel, Twain and Dostoevsky would still be fumbling with the pen and asking, "Where am I? Who are you people? Why does everybody have these flashing magic light boxes?" While Za-Um is busy writing a fucking Great Gatsby. The characters feel like real people doing their best to make do in a world that doesn't care if they live or die. Even when they're talking about historical events that they didn't have any part of, the characters still make it feel like they have a personal stake in what happened and how it affected them. Everyone in the game has an opinion on why Rachel is the way it is, and who to blame for that. Some hold on to the past and refuse to accept that Rachel isn't what it used to be. Others just accept that this is the world they live in and hope someday they'll be able to get out. Nobody in Disco Elysium is a clear-cut good guy or bad guy. Yeah, there are some less than stellar denizens of Rachel, like this slimy fuck here, but they usually have a reason why they are the way that they are and act accordingly. The game has similarly nuanced political alignments as well. In conversation, you're going to be given ample opportunity to express how you view the events around you politically. Whether you think Rachel should become a libertarian's wet dream or a communist utopia is up to you. Since the game doesn't really do moderate, you may be picking some dialogue options that contradict how you feel in real life. If you're a dirty, filthy, capitalist, pig-dog American like myself, you probably wondered throughout the game, why are all these options so extreme? And a certain character in the game answers that question and exposes the flaws that come with that line of thinking. Talking with that character was the highlight of the game for me, so I won't spoil it here. But it made me reconsider my political alignments more than any game listed as political on Steam. Mostly because a lot of those games are utter dog shit, but still. Even outside the politics, the stories being told in this game are absolutely beautiful. Every character feels like a fully realized human being with their own flaws and quirks that make them them. Every quest, be it short or long, light or dark, feels real. In most games, I could care less about some lines of dialogue attached to a character model. But Disco Elysium? It's different. These people's lives would go on whether you were there or not. I sympathize with every homesick truck driver, every estranged fisherwoman, every misguided kid without a role model to look up to. This characterization gave me more motive to help out around Rachel than any level 100 flaming sword of Alamur ever could. It's a great thing that what they have you doing to help out is equally absorbing. Whether it be hunting for a mysterious cryptid that always manages to be just out of reach, or exploring the seedy underbelly of Rachel, every quest feels impactful, and most importantly, real. To be honest, I never finished Disco Elysium the first time around, so I could move on to bigger and better games. But it was always there in the back of my mind, gnawing at me to take a trip back to the war-torn streets of Rachel. When I finally started the game back up again, it was like a day hadn't passed since I last played it. Stories this good stick with you. And if all that bitch talk about nuance and maturity and having to read in a video game scared you off, then fear not, because this is also the funniest game I have ever played. The whole world plays a straight man to your whirlwind of stupidity and incompetence sweeping through the town. Nearly every conversation in this game will give you a laugh or two. Disco Elysium is by no means a perfect game. Walking around everywhere gets old once you've explored every nook and cranny the game has to offer, and it's less than stellar about indicating what you're supposed to be doing at a few key points in the story. But those few nitpicks pale in comparison to the monumental strengths this game does have. I could go on about the gorgeous watercolor art style, the poignant soundtrack, the atmosphere so thick you could cut it like butter. But the fact of the matter is, Disco Elysium meant so much to me that the lazy-ass college student that I am decided to sit down and type up an expose about how much I love this game. Disco Elysium is one of my favorite games of all time. I hope you make it one of yours too. Thanks for watching.